Ladies and gentlemen, it is 7 o'clock. We will call the meeting to order. Thank everyone for being here tonight, and I'm going to call on Councilman Chip Turner to do our invocation. Chip, if you would, please.
Bow your heads with me, please. Heavenly Father, we come to you today, and we thank you for this day, and for your mercy and your grace and love. And we thank you for this city and our staff, and we ask you to bless us all. Be with this council tonight as we make decisions and guide us and give us wisdom. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, sir. Would you please rise for our Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are the Graham City Council. We appreciate everybody being here tonight, and rest assured everyone who wants to speak will have opportunity to do so. The first thing we'll do tonight is go to our consent agenda. First, approval of minutes March 5th. Approval of minutes March the 14th. C, approve the Arbor Day proclamation. And D, approve request of North Carolina Baptist, North Graham Baptist Church to close off 300 block of West Whitsey Street. Does anybody want to pull any one of these things from the consent agenda? If not, I need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Thank you, ma'am. I need a second.
Second.
Thank you, sir. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed likewise. Next, we have old business, East Interstate Service Road property update. Frankie, I think you're handling this for us, please, sir.
Sure. A brief update. At last month's council meeting, the council decided to initiate the upset bid process for the sale of the property. At the same time, order an appraisal of the property. The appraisal is complete. I think the full appraisal is in your agenda packet, and the estimated value from the appraiser is $266,000. We did have another offer come in with the upset bid process, which requires us to go through the process one more time. So therefore, since the process was not complete in time for this meeting, a final decision was not on your agenda. So I thought I would just provide you with this brief update.
Questions for the staff. Melody, would you have any questions, please?
No, sir.
Griffin.
Yes, sir. The I'm sorry, I'm having trouble getting my agenda up, but the net down number of $213,750. Can you explain what those fees are and that's just the?
Okay, the initial offer that was presented a couple months ago had an offer of $225,000, but there was a condition on the offer of a realtor's fee, and so the $213,000 would be the net to the city after the realtor fees.
So,
then a subsequent offer was received of $240,000, and that was the offer that started the upset bid process.
so is the $252,050, is that a net number? There's no realtor's fee?
That would be net.
Net, I mean, less closing costs or?
Yeah.
Okay. And is there, during the upset bid process, and there's the resolution in there, but I didn't see it. If it's in there, I'm sure it's there. Explain to me so say we don't get any upset bids, what's that? You just said the time period, what was it?
It's 10 days. And after 10 days, if there's a bid received and it qualifies, meeting the standards set forth, it raises it, then you start the process over, and there's another posting and 10 days to respond for any other qualified bidders.
Walk me through the process if we don't get another bid.
If you don't get another bid, then that final offer, the highest offer that we have, we will bring that back to the council for final decision on whether or not to sell the property for that amount.
All right, no more questions.
Chipper.
No questions.
Lee, please.
I didn't there. So what was the cost of the appraisal, Frank?
$650, I believe.
And we have no commitment, and I haven't asked this in the past, but it's been in my notes. We've had no commitment where we had a realtor to represent the property. Our commitment with that realtor has long been extinguished.
It did expire.
It expired, so we no longer have any commitment with that. Okay, thank you.
I have a question, not for Frankie, but for Brian. Brian, how close to the estimate do we need to be to satisfy the state constitution?
I can't answer that. I really don't know. I think as long as we're showing that we're trying to get there. I think certainly the higher the better. It'd be great if it came in, just a couple of $1,000, few $1,000s would be, excellent. But I think as long as we're going through the process and trying to get there, it's up to the council.
Okay, thank you, sir. All right, going to the floor. Does anybody want to speak on this? Come up, Chuck, if you would, please. Let's have your name and address, sir.
Chuck Talley, 808 Sidley Street. I just want to clarify something. Right now, the net's around 213
No, that was the original offer.
net. Okay. What is your net now with the offer you got now? Do you know?
It's 252,050.
That's the net after the real estate commission. That's been.
There is no real estate commission.
Okay. Because I want to clarify some things. Because Mr. Herlocker, I was just making sure that there's no real estate commission. There's nothing that involved with his offer either. And I just want to make sure that, see where's that. I'm just looking out for him, that's all. So I'm not his realtor. I just have two questions. So other than that, that's the main thing. I just want to see where the net was right now. So, because as of right now, I think he's trying to move out of Graham, and I was going to try to reel him back in for Graham. So anyway.
Okay, thank you, Chuck. Anybody else want to speak on this? Okay. Thank you for the update. We appreciate it. There's no action to be done until the final
Correct.
10 days.
No action.
You want to speak, Jennifer? Come up, please. Let's have your name and address, please, ma'am.
Jennifer Talley, 808 Sideview Street, Graham. I just thought that not just myself, but a lot of people thought from the last meeting that nothing would go to upset bid until the appraisal got back. That was the understanding that myself and a lot of other people had. And I just think that Mr. Herlocker just feels like the way he found out was having his broker call the city and actually call Jeff Smith, I think, the other realtor. And it just was like, just put a bad taste in his mouth because he just felt like, he gets told, one thing at the meeting and then he doesn't even know he needs to go to his bank to try to get more money, to try to put in another offer. And it's like the 10 days is already up.
It's not up. He's got time.
Well, I mean, at that time, the 10 days was up. There was another bid that came in, but I'm just saying, like, from the last meeting, it was my understanding, it was certainly the realtor's understanding, it was a lot of other people's understanding that nothing would be done until the appraisal. And so then it went to upset bid, and I just think at the least we could have notified them. So I would just say, from this meeting, he's not here tonight because he's like, well, they clearly don't want me here. So I was just like, well, that's not the case. And I just think it would be a good gesture to at least notify them in writing, all the bidders, what the bid is and what the process is, so that everything looks above board.
Let's do it a different way. Let's just make sure he knows to call us and we'll tell him where it's at and just give him the information and the process. He already knows the process because I've talked to him.
Okay.
It's fine.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak? All right, thank you. Then we'll move on. The next thing is B, a quasi-judicial public hearing for the campground. So this is continued from last month. Does anybody want to speak on this first off? I'll go to staff. Nathan first.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. As you're aware, this is a request for a special use permit for a commercial campground for a property located on Kronberg's Court. And it is my understanding that the applicant desires to speak on this briefly tonight.
Okay, the applicant want to speak on it? Where'd Carson go? Yes, sir.
I tried to get my representative back there
I did too.
to speak, and I couldn't get him to come forward. I'll have to fire him when I get home. So we met with the city staff. Everything went good. There's a operating agreement and stuff they'd like to get in place. I just feel that we didn't have enough time to get it done. So I do have Chad Huffine working on that, and he'll be getting in touch with Nathan and probably have another meeting with everybody in there to make sure it's worded like everybody wants it. We'll look at it to both sides. So we just need another 30 days is all.
Okay. Brian, how do we handle this? Do we do it with a vote or do it with consensus?
I'm assuming with the vote.
Okay. Well, I'll make a motion. We postpone this till next month for the family's benefit. I need a second.
Second.
Thank you, sir. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Opposed likewise. Thank you, Chuck. Okay, next we go recommendations from the planning board. Public hearing, feather flags, AM 1901. Nathan, you handling this for us, please?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. There was an application by Richard Slavin that has requested to permit feather flags within the city of Graham. There are a few different recommendations before you. One is the existing language. Then there is one that was proposed by Mr. Shevlin. There is a section of language that was proposed by staff. And then there is a fourth set that was proposed by the planning board. The planning board recommended approval for their language.
Question for staff. Griffin, we'll start with you, please.
So if this, let's say the applicant's language is approved, explain the controls, the written controls we would have in the overlay districts and historic districts, if you would.
So this would apply to the city at large. And if there was more specific language about it within the overlay district or the historic district, it would rule. If there is not more specific language about it, then this would rule. And as an example, windblown propellers is not mentioned in the historic district, nor is it mentioned in the overlay district. So it could be construed that if someone applied for windblown propellers because they're only addressed here, that they would be permitted anywhere in the city.
But it would require a COA in the historic?
No,
Okay, just because it's not addressed.
because of the specific drives the general. So if it's generally referenced that something should occur somewhere, it is less binding than if it is specifically. So as an example, the downtown speed limit is 20 miles per hour because it is signed. Everywhere that there is no speed limit sign in the city of Graham, it's 35 miles per hour. So this would be the general, that it could be 35 miles per hour unless there was specific language against it.
I'm not familiar with your example, the wind-blown propeller. Is that a sign? Is that what you're talking about? Or are you talking about?
Section 10.397, general limitations, devices consistent of banners, streamers, pendants, windblown propellers, strung light bulbs, and similar installations shall be permitted.
The question remains, wind-blown propellers, what are?
They're something big that spins.
All right.
Is there a square footage limitation on these?
The planning board made a recommendation that they be limited to no more than 2 per lot and no more than 32 square feet each and no more than 8 feet tall.
Now, would this go along with your front yard sign? Or would that cut down your front yard sign square footage, or?
It
I don't know
would,
if I'm being very specific, but
it wouldn't limit any other signage that is permitted on your lot.
okay, so and it wouldn't control the size of the flag, the banner. That's it's 32 square foot, cut and dry.
For each one of the two
Yes.
feather flags.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Wait, question.
I do. So Nathan, how many people currently have permission from our city manager that would allow for these feather, and I'm going to call them signs?
As far as I'm aware, the only time that it's ever been granted, at least since I've been here, has been for 30 days for a grand opening event that has occurred. And there have been a number of applicants that have done that. Almost every new construction place has done that since I've been here, but not all of them. It does have to be the applicant has to request it.
And so in those situations, the city manager has the right to put a time limit on that for grand openings and things of that sort, correct? And that's occurred.
That's correct.
That has occurred on how often you think it would occur?
Few times a year. at
Okay, a few
least.
times a year. The proposed language from the planning board that they're recommending would allow 2 per lot in B1, I1, and O and I.
And I too.
And I2. Out of all those 4 zones, which ones of those allow for unified business development? Would it be safe to say all of them except I-2?
I'm not certain. I would have to look.
The answer to that before he looks.
It's everything but I-2. And that's a unified business development light as a use by right and B1, O&I, and I1.
Yes, sir.
So you could have multiple businesses on the same parcel, but you're only going to allow 2 flags per parcel with the recommended language, correct?
Yes, sir. Not more than 2 per lot.
Thank you.
Ellie, questions, please.
No, not at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Nathan. All right, anyone want to speak on this? Richard, come up, please. Richard, let us have your name and address if you would, please. It's good to see you here, sir.
Richard Shevlin, 510 Wildwood Lane, Graham, North Carolina. Thanks for having me. To answer your question about the multi-businesses, I own the property at 909 Washington Street, which there's 3 businesses in there currently. There's Haw River Farmhouse Ales, and there is Office Machine Systems and Savvy Furniture. Fortunately, Savvy Furniture and Office Machine Sales. Randy's open Monday through Friday. Barbara's open Friday through Sunday. And Haw River Farmhouse Ales does not advertise as currently, as of right now. So as I explained to the Planning Commission or the Planning Board, when you turn that corner from Providence onto Washington Street, you have about 6 seconds to notice Barbara's driveway. And it's gone like that. And we have people drive by it all the time. The flags are there from Friday through Sunday, brought in the evenings. And I'll be honest, without flags like that, I don't know how people would see that driveway without having something to put there, whether it be the tethered flags, feathered flags. I don't want no air guy. You know, we don't want that. We don't want to be tacky. But those signs to us are extremely important. Now, of course, we fall outside, Nathan, of the city of the overlay. Is that correct?
Yes.
So I fall outside the overlay and the historic area. Even though the building 1890s, it's got a lot of historic value, which we haven't changed that. But, you know, we would be extremely concerned for our business, for people to be able to find us. And, you know, therefore the flags for us are very, very important, very imperative to, especially weekend business. You know, City of Graham's really busy right now on weekends. So when we do get people coming in and out, we have a very short time to grab them, to get them to come in. It's not like a park downtown and get to walk around town and visit all the stores. We're kind of out there. So again, that short period of time is very important to us. So them flags are extremely important. I'm not saying I want a separate ordinance for people outside of the overlay or outside the historic district, but I think if it becomes an issue, I think it's something we should discuss. I know some of the people have concerns about the historic and inside the city limits. So I'm open for more further discussion if that continues to be a problem. And can we possibly have a solution in that manner as well?
Richard, would you mind answering questions?
No, sir.
Start with you, Chipper, please.
No questions at this time.
Lee, you got any
I
questions?
do. So how many
Yes, sir.
flags have you flown in the past?
2. We have 2 flags and we had 4 yard signs that, you know, Barbara has market samples and things like that. And we advertised that. And those were left out. I wish I wouldn't have now, but they do come in and out now. But there's 2 signs at the driveway and that's it.
And you mentioned you had 3 businesses there on that one particular parcel.
That
Has
is
there
correct.
been any interest in any other businesses being able to use some type of additional signage?
Well, as of right now, Randy puts up 2, but it is on inside the property at his door. So I don't think it applies. His signs have, that doesn't fall since it's hundreds of feet off the street. It doesn't fall into the same category, does it?
The definition of a sign is something by which it's made to capture attention from the right of way. So if it's on the sign that goes up the stairs to Randy's spot,
That's correct.
it's not.
Okay.
But the signage at the site is not currently in compliance with the ordinance.
Now, he has expressed interest in wanting to put it out during the week at the road to also gather. He's used to being inside the city where he had a lot of attention at one time. He doesn't have that now. So I would like to keep Randy. He's been a good tenant, and he's invested really well upstairs. He's taken care of the building for us well. And actually, there'll be a fourth business as of next month, which I can't divulge right now, but it is a business in Graham. It's staying in Graham, so that's a good thing.
Yeah. So the flags you've used in the past, you've located those flags on private property?
They are on our property. Yes, sir.
So they're outside the right of way?
That is correct.
Okay.
They are in accordance with the engineers. They send you a diagram of how deep they need to be and how far the bottom needs to be from the ground, so they won't fall over on people or fall over on cars. So we follow all those. We follow those instructions.
How tall are the ones that you are currently using or have in the past?
I'm going to say they're 7.5 foot. And one says furniture, one says market samples. And they are white with red lettering.
And that's including the base as well?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
No. Melody, please.
Yeah. So, and this is for Nathan as well. So how far do we think that those signs are when you're putting them outside the right of way? What kind of distance is that?
I'm going to say, it's crossed. I'm going to say it's about 4 feet
Or
from the
feet
road, from the roadway, ma'am.
Okay, that's all I need to know. Thank you.
Yeah. So take me through your steps, and maybe I understand it, but about not looking for something permanent. Is that a preference? Is there a space issue? What's your?
No, we actually, I haven't applied for the permit yet, but we did have a sign made that I'm going to put up under Office Machine Systems. But the sign is static. There's no, how can I tell you? There's no tension getter. There's nothing to say, here I am. They ride by, they see the sign, but the flags are to say, here's the driveway. So the sign is 25 feet from the driveway. It's past the driveway. So there will be nothing before the driveway to grab it.
Thank you, Richard. We
You're welcome.
appreciate you being here.
Yes, sir.
Anybody else want to speak on this? Come up, Jennifer, if you would. Nice to have you here again.
Huh?
Good to see you again. It's nice to see you
Hi,
again. I'm
thank
sorry.
you. Sorry. Jennifer Talley, 808 Sadview Street. One of the things that I think maybe I don't know if you know where Richard Shevlin's place is, but it looks like a old mill storage
old.
area. And it doesn't look like it would be a place necessarily that you would go to find new furniture. And just having a sign up against his building, just me as a consumer driving by there, I don't know that I would necessarily know that that's a place to go get it. So I do think the fact that having something that says, hey, I'm open, hey, this is a place that doesn't manufacture furniture or repair old furniture, that this is actually a place to come shop, it just makes it seem more inviting to me as a consumer. I see his ads on Facebook and stuff a lot. And so then when I kind of associate that with his place that he says, then I know where he's at. I mean, if I didn't know him, that's how I would know where he's at and what he sells. I just want to hand out a packet to you guys that has basically, I don't know if I have enough.
Thank you.
Thank you, man.
But one of the first items that you have there, it'll say a snapper and simplicity sheet here. This is something that us as local brand owners in the downtown, and maybe Griffin knows this from owning a business that sells certain, like I know Paul Krotz talks about this a lot with his Lazy Boy brand. But, you know, this is what we pay for, whether we want to or not. Like, to carry this brand, you're going to get this. We don't pick it out. They send it to us, and you don't have a choice but to pay for it. So if I can't put out that feather banner, I'm still going to pay for it. It's just going to sit in my warehouse, unopened, I guess. But they do this to, you know, for independent business owners because they don't have a lot of kind of buying power on like marketing and things like that. And I'm just telling you, as I said in the planning board meeting, there is a tremendous amount of pressure on the brands to get us to leave the downtowns and to move to the interstate. They, you know, the reason why we lost Kubota Tractor to Burlington and now we're going to lose it to Greensboro is because of the same pressure. So they want to see these marketing tools used. I think that we do it in a way that is attractive. You have a picture of what farm services look like before and what farm services looks like now. I hate we didn't get afforded the opportunity to go to the appearance commission because I feel like I could have presented our side. We didn't get a side with the appearance commission. It wasn't on the agenda that they were going to be discussing that, or I would have certainly gone and you know said here's before, here's after with the banner flags. I don't think anyone on the appearance commission would say that that looks tacky or is gaudy or whatever. Some of the things that Nathan had pictures of, I agree with. I mean, 30-foot tall at Shell Station. I mean, I don't agree with that. I think that's too much, and I think it's dangerous if the wind got up. I mean, these are things that we have out with plants and things like that. If the wind gets up, we bring plants in, and we bring all of these things in every night at 5 o'clock. But just like the city wants to put the banners up, and the Downtown Business Association wants to advertise and have our place look nice as you're coming in, and this is a shopping area, this is a place to stop. That's the idea behind these marketing tools. And if this is a driving distraction, then why are all the banners on every single pole? You'd have to say those are a driving distraction. It's just not realistic. If you look at the one can you see the Traeger banner in Colonial Hardware? I mean, that's completely off the sidewalk in our parking lot, but someone that pulls up that maybe is coming to eat at the soda shop would say, oh, wow, they sell Traeger grills. We do it tastefully, and I really feel like if this becomes a problem, it hasn't been a problem in 50 years, but if it were to become a problem, I'll be the first person back up here saying, hey, we need to change it. But it hadn't been a problem till now. We put those beautiful banners across the city streets that say this month, Child Abuse Prevention Month, and letting everybody know. We had a great turnout. We do the same thing for Slice of Summer. We do the same thing for the Halloween Festival. This is part of the charm of living in downtown Graham. It's part of being a small community and really kind of inviting people that maybe just pass through on their way to work to, hey, stop and shop. Hey, stop and have lunch. I really hope you'll consider the pressure that we're under to stay here in Graham. They very much want us to open another location, and they want us to move to the interstate, and we really want to stay in downtown. So help us do that. Help us stay in downtown Graham and bringing people to downtown. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jennifer. Anybody else want to speak on this? Got a question, Tom? Come up, please.
My question was back to in the discussion with Mr. Shevlin, there was some discussion that the current signage is not in compliance. Did I understand you to say that, Nathan?
That's correct.
What about it is not in compliance?
There are currently 4 monument signs of one sort or another, freestanding signs that are on the site. One of them is a tattered and in disrepair. One of them is a changeable type that you can switch the wording out on, that copy read sign.
Take the individual letters out, replace it.
I don't know that term, but I know what you mean. Okay.
And so they're permitted to have 2 freestanding signs not closer than 50 feet from each other per street frontage, and they are limited to the name of the establishments they're in. Some of them are like phone numbers and whatnot that are on there.
So the phone number part is what's part of the violation?
They're permitted 2 freestanding signs not closer than 50 feet that are limited to the name of the establishment. There's 1 sign that fits that description at that location, and it is currently tattered and in disrepair.
Okay.
Anybody else want to ask a question or speak? Yes, Ricky. Ricky, it's good to see you, sir.
Good evening. My name is Ricky Hall. I live at 2501 Pepperstone Drive in Graham. I'm also the planning board chairman, and we are here tonight asking that you adopt our recommendations. We went through and found something that will be usable for the business districts. We limited the locations that these feather flags can be flown at. So it's not something that's citywide. We give it as short of a leash as we could possibly give it. And I'll answer any questions.
Lee, have you got any questions for Ricky?
So Ricky, what's your opinion on the 2 flags per parcel with the possibility that some business owners are not going to get the opportunity? And how do you address that question if they're not given the opportunity to use the flags as an advertising tool and only allowing 2 per lot when there's multiple businesses on a lot of different lots, especially in B1, especially I1?
That would be up to the property owner. I mean, it's not for us to dictate who can use the flags.
Sure.
That's up to the property owners. We tried to narrow it down to where you didn't have 30 flags in front of a piece of property.
Sure.
And by doing that, if you had 2 businesses or one main business and a secondary business, or everybody could actually rotate their flags out.
And I know that you guys talked and discussed the possibility of allowing it per business, but that didn't seem to fit because of that possibility that an area where there were multiple businesses on the same parcel would load those flags up.
Yes, sir.
On that parcel. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Melody, questions for Ricky, please?
I don't have any for Ricky. I do have one for Nathan, if I could.
Yes, ma'am.
If we were to move forward with this, and this is a general, if the Downtown Historic Resources Commission were to disagree and wanted to take something up specifically in the downtown area, is that possible? Or are we making that decision for them as well right now?
They would not be able to regulate all of the B1 area. They would be able to regulate the portions that are in the historic district.
In the historic district, correct.
Which is not the same as downtown.
That's correct.
The boundaries are different.
Right. Thank you.
Different question.
No, sir.
Ricky, what I want you to do is take this back to the staff, your group, that we appreciate everything they do, and their recommendations are always highly appreciated here with the city council. Anybody else disagree with that?
No, absolutely not. It's you guys that bet these things for us, and we always appreciate that.
All right. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Anybody else want to speak? Are you going to speak, Chuck?
Hello, it's me again. Chuck Talley, 808 Sodview Street. So I know we didn't have nothing in writing and stuff, but when we started using the banners, I think the previous city manager was here and he had verbally, told us we could use the things, and that's why we started sticking them out in the first place. And I will tell you this, the impact of us putting product and stuff on the sidewalk is so important. Because when we don't move anything out there, it's like we're ghost town. But there's so much traffic that's coming, that's turning, that's going back on the 49 right there, that we have people that are actually coming by, even in log trucks, unfortunately, that will come back on Saturday because they see what we're doing out there. And so us being able to market ourselves on that sidewalk is so important because, you know, you're limited to the car count anyway, and every little bit helps, you know what I'm saying? So I think that in our situation, we do get new stuff every year, whether we want it or not. We can't, if we say we don't want this stuff, then we don't get all the hang tags, we don't get all the price books, we don't get, it's like, we have to get it all, and that's part of the package. And so, and it's just like with Traeger, you know, we have the Traeger flag that we put up. But when I don't know if y'all have been over to the hardware store on a Saturday when he has the Traeger days, which he does about every month. It's sort of like the banner everybody can see when they're coming down the street, because we have people coming from all over the county. I tell Aaron all the time he's done built a cult, because there's so many people that show up with their own grills and want to learn how to cook, and they'll have a Traeger rep to come in and teach them how to use the grills. So they're utilized in so many different ways. So it's not going to kill our business if we don't get it, but on the same line, every little bit helps. And as far as the signage goes, to speak on behalf of Richard, I mean, I know he's got some signs that look outdated. And years ago, me and Jennifer had, when she was on the historical commission, thought, well, in a perfect world, we would have all these really nice historical signs that people would spend $4,000 or $5,000 on. But it's more important that businesses get in and start making it. And as they start making, if you'll pay attention to what happened, if you'll think about it with Farm Services from 2012 today, it's evolved. So what's happened is the more money we make, the more money we're able to do more with it to get it where we want to go. And I think a lot of businesses, I tell everybody, the business signs are so important. It's like a necktie to a nice suit. You don't have a nice suit on if you don't have the accessories to go with it. But when you're starting businesses and stuff, people have to look at what's most expensive, what's more important, and to spend their money on at some point. But hopefully at some point, you know, the things will evolve where they don't need things like this. So I just hope y'all consider on allowing us to continue to use them. If not, can I get a citation every year? Does it renew itself every year where I can get one every year or what? I'm just picking.
Thank you, Chuck.
Yeah.
Any
Questions?
You want to ask Chuck a question?
Chuck. Question, perhaps? So you mentioned something I thought was very interesting, and that is that in our code of ordinance, it allows you to put your wares out on the sidewalk for advertising purposes. What value would you place on that versus that feather sign, which is not allowed on the right of way, but your products that you sell are?
Because we've been putting the feather flag out up to the point we've gotten a citation every year for the last 3 years.
Has it been in the right of way?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So we put it out there with the lawnmowers and stuff, because when the cars are parked there and stuff in front of the building, and typically it's really busy from 11 to 2, and that's one of the peak hours, is you can't really see the lawnmowers that good, but you'll see the flag saying Snapper Simplicity on it. And so that gives us a little bit more visibility. And I say, oh, they got Snapper. You know what I mean? It's hard to read the little label, so they're able to see what brands we have.
But you can see that big lawn tractor. I mean,
well, you just don't know what brand it is, though, and people always inquire about brands. And
Sure.
so I think that the product, of course, I said, getting stuff out onto the sidewalk is when we have our better days.
Sure.
So if it's cold and we don't move stuff out there because it's cold, we're not going to.
Yeah.
It seems like we're a ghost town in the store.
Well, moving forward, where would you be able to use any type of feather sign?
Downtown, not really anywhere.
Okay.
So, I mean, I wouldn't want to use them. I mean, the only ways we use it at the hardware stores, because we have the lot beside it. I wouldn't put that out in front of the building. That what we do have in front of the building is that right there, the American flag, and it's
no, they're allowed.
been going
Yeah,
there
sure.
for like the whole time.
And that's why I call this a
Well,
feather
continue to
sign,
build
because
that
it is
hole
a
in the-
feather sign.
There's a hole in the sidewalk, you know that. We stick
Sure.
it in the sidewalk every day. I didn't put the hole there. It come with the building or the sidewalk and about the building.
Flags are allowed.
And the thing is, we have to worry about spinner stuff too, because we do hang our spinners and our flag spinners from the canopy, because you know, even though we have them in bags on the inside and they're easy to transport when the blooms are put together, they don't want the one in the bag. They want the one that's spinning. So we do sell a lot more spinners and stuff during the springtime and during the season when we're able to put those things out, and that helps some too, but that's what they want. They stop to buy them. In 2012, we brought this stuff in and we looked at it. In 2000, and you know, as the economy and consumer confidence comes back, And last year, just with the spinners and stuff that we're selling, we sold 3 times the amount that we sold the previous year. So I do think it works, you know, 'cause now that we're putting them together and hanging them out there.
But what you just mentioned, though, is you really don't have the area to put a feather sign and keep it out of the right of way.
No, it's on the sidewalk, right?
Okay.
It's on the sidewalk. It's in the encroachment that I have.
Okay.
But your Trader Joe's sign is actually in the parking lot of the hardware store, is that correct?
That's correct. It's
Okay.
in the lawn
See,
area.
that's
Right.
that's not a big deal. It is,
Right.
it is a beacon for you, but it's not a big deal. It's not sitting right there on the street.
I get that.
Nathan, were you going to talk about the encroachment and
I was going to address the small items that Farm Services sells that are out for display. Those are not advertising material.
That's
They're
right.
items that are for
and
sale.
that's allowed?
They're not covered under this.
That's correct.
Provided they're within 3 feet of the building and
Sure.
are items that are sold at that.
I think that's
structure.
one, and they're in compliance. It's just the signs.
Yeah,
It's in that,
flag.
the feather signs.
Right.
Anybody else got a question for Chuck? I do have one more. Chuck, I know you and Jennifer both said that this would not make or break you. Let's go to Richard's situation. Richard is in a corner right there with a very blind.
Reason why I'm here is because I started coming because of Richard. It's extremely important that he has them. The other 2 banner flags that he has, you can't even see them because Randy has them beside his front door half the block away, so people know where Randy's door's at. So we're a customer of theirs. We do business there. In fact, they're warehousing NASPRO and some of their equipment. I was able to help them purchase, find the other week for them. So he's even warehousing stuff for NAS, which is in the process of we're working on. So
There are other businesses in town you think this would make or break? I mean, this seems more important to Richard's site than yours. Because of the corner right there on Washington Street. I mean, it's a tough place.
yeah,
Mhm.
so I don't know. I mean, it seems like all the businesses are doing really good right now.
They are, but I mean, that's a site.
And I think there's
that's a
more
hard site.
coming, and the more people get down here, the more we need.
All right, thank you, sir. I appreciate your time.
But so anyway, y'all make sure you come to customer appreciation. Some of the door prizes are gonna be feather banners, it looks like.
Don't count it out yet. All right, anybody else want to speak on this?
We can have the feather banner at the building or wherever you want us to place it, but I do think it's really important for us, for our brand, so that we stay in compliant with what our brands are telling us to do, to have that. I'm happy with putting it wherever you want us to put it,
I'm
but
not, I wasn't saying it was gonna, it wouldn't hurt you a little bit, but it wouldn't break you or make you or break you. Both of them said that.
I guess I'd say if it's always been allowed and it's never been a problem, why can't we continue going on? And if it becomes a problem, then make a rule against it.
There's
mean-
already a rule against
But the whole reason that was written was because they put up 10 banners. So we were limiting it to 2 and we
Granted,
had
and
permission to do it.
You were doing your constitutional right to try to change that rule. That's what this is all about.
But it never was supposed to affect us. We were told it wasn't going to affect us.
I don't know who told
When-
you that, but
when
a
that-
rule affects everyone.
But that's a different planner. That's a different city
The
manager.
planner,
At the
interpreting the
time
rules
that
is-
was done, it was not supposed to affect us. That's my sworn testimony.
your sworn testimony, you were sitting in one of these seats when it was done.
Exactly. And that's exactly why it was written that said the city manager can approve for them to exist, which,
Temporarily.
well, we had approval. So now we get a new city manager, a new planner, and now
No,
all of
it's
a
still the
sudden it's
same.
not
You
approved.
still got a temporary sign that you can temporarily put up. You helped craft this, the thing that we're trying to change right now, Jennifer.
Because it wasn't going to affect existing businesses that were already doing it. We were going to be grandfathered in. We already had approval to do it. So now we don't have approval, and now we have to take them down. That's my only thing, Jerry. It
I know.
was not, I'm going to do what's in the best interest of Graham, but I really don't think this has been a problem for Graham, except for when it gets 13 flags in front, limiting it to 2, which I think the planning board did a very good job of kind of limiting it a lot.
We'll do the right thing, you know that, but I'm just trying to tell you your constitutional right is to come up here and try to change a rule that you don't like. That's what we're doing.
Well, it's only changed because staff's changed. We were doing it before.
Not making it right. That doesn't make it right.
So I'd like to ask something, if I may, of staff in regards to that. How is it that a non-conforming site element that is temporary in nature ever be grandfathered in?
I am not aware of any interpretation where that would be the case.
Okay.
Anybody else want to speak on this? If not, we're going to close the public hearing. We're going to talk about it among ourselves. So what does everybody think? And I think the biggest point that anybody brought up was Jennifer's point that the city does it every day. The city does it, why can't someone else? We hang a banner uptown. We hang banners all over the place. The
Wow.
Thursday at 7.
I've made that argument in the past that did not gain any traction with this council.
I have to.
You're doing it right now.
I've done it before.
Okay.
I think it's the city's right to do things for communal
It is
good,
right, but
and
that
that's
doesn't
private
make it
interest.
It's their right to do it, but does it make it right?
My concern with the whole thing is the distance from the street. I'm sorry, but 4 foot is not in my comfort level of putting something, a flag like that, that has that kind of movement 4 feet from the street.
Well,
That's a comfort level. That's,
Richard.
and talking with several businesses, and law enforcement, that is not a comfort.
and now that can be corrected there at Richard's spot. He can go behind the ditch.
Have to go behind.
Yeah, and that's further than 4 feet.
The
That's a
thing-
lot further than 4
The
feet.
thing we have to remember is we're not talking about Richard's building. We're not talking
Right.
about
We
specific
can't
sites.
get
We're talking about
specific.
That's true.
community wide. And that's what, I mean, you've got to consider all locations and exploitations of the rule.
Yeah.
When we
Right.
legislate. I don't like the temporary aspect of them. I think, and I just said not to talk about Richard's location, but in this location, could it not be achieved something with some colorful landscaping, a colorful monument sign, something that's permanent, that exudes a sense of occupancy to our buildings? I think that that shows established business, that shows successful business in my eyes, and I think that's more of my issue than traffic or safety. I just don't think the motion of a sign blowing with the wind is necessary.
So doing some research on this and looking at this idea of how to regulate or legislate taste in regards to signage. Feather flags have been around a long time. I think Jennifer mentioned that. They've been around for a long time.
Really
And
have.
cities and counties across this nation have tried to regulate this with very little success. I've got articles after articles here that I just happen to bring with me that mentions from council members and governing bodies terms like when they discontinued the ban on feather flags, it turned into a circus. Circus atmosphere. This is all the way from California to Florida, all the way across the nation. Now, I've always taken pride that here in the city of Graham, we make our own path. We do things according to what's best for our citizens. But it doesn't mean that I can't look at someone else's mistakes and learn from them. And other cities have tried to regulate this. And the only problem that I have, and I think the planning board did a great job of trying to get to a point where we might be able to regulate this, but I cannot hesitate to consider the call that I'm going to get in the future when a business owner calls and says, they're doing it, why can't I do it?
Right.
Why can't I put my 2 out? They're going to call the city, or they're going to go out there and put 2 signs up, and then our zoning officer is going to go by and go, you're not allowed to put your 2 up. And they go, wait a minute, they've got 2. There's 5 other businesses here. What were you thinking not allowing everyone the same opportunity? And we're not providing that. Everything I look at, I want to be fair across the board. Is this fair for every business owner? And it's not, because the ones that's in a unified business development will not have the opportunity. Somebody's going to have to make a decision on who gets those 2 flags. And ultimately that call is going to come to us. And I don't want to answer that call.
And then I'm sorry, but we're going to see 2, and then we're going to see 2, and then we're going to see 2. We can end up with them lining up down the street. Is that really what we want to do?
I
mean,
wish there was a way. I've looked at ways to try to regulate this. I really have, and to be tasteful and to be fair. I can't figure it out. I looked at per parcel. I looked at it per business. I looked at limits, zones. And then it got to be so exhausting that I can't imagine staff trying to enforce any of this. And I looked at previous examples. I go, what's going on across the country and in North Carolina with other cities? They've just got to the point where they just had to ban them and just say, this just doesn't work. We can't find an equitable and fair way for everyone to be able to use them. So no one can.
Well, you've
So-
also seen the list. We all have the list of all the cities and counties in the state of North Carolina that have said no.
Yeah.
There are very, very few that have said yes. And there's a reason for that. When you go investigate those, they're even having issues and reconsidering. A couple of that I spoke to. So it's not just, you know, I'm hearing one thing and I'm feeling, how can we fix this? How can we make this better? But I don't think this is the answer.
Yeah.
According to everybody else, there are very few of these people that actually have passed it that aren't having issues right now.
Yeah. And there's no doubt, and I just want to say this, I know that there's a situation, especially I think it's Mr. Shelton there, that Shevlin, I'm sorry, Mr. Shevlin, that it could be very beneficial, and I understand the need. I really do, but that need has to be something that we can regulate across the board and allow other people the opportunity. There's no doubt that they're successful. I was looking at comments made at board meetings across North Carolina, across the country, where business owners are saying the same thing that I've heard here tonight and at other meetings about they do generate some interest and garner some attention when people ride by. I get that. I just wish there was some way that it could be regulated and done tastefully, and I can't figure that out.
Chipper, you've been quiet. Tell me something.
Just been thinking back and forth this. It would definitely benefit Richard, but like you say, it'll be somebody else calling to do it and they can't do it. I mean, I'd like to do this thing, but I'd like to see him bring something else back to us, maybe that we could live with. I don't know if that's possible.
I'm sitting here visualizing down here where Graham Donuts is.
Yes.
That shopping center right there, if you put two signs up, who gets them?
Who gets them?
And if you allow everybody to have two, how many is that? That's
Oh my gosh.
16 signs.
Exactly. I mean, it's all up and down that little median strip, but
Those districts wouldn't be allowed.
B2 wouldn't be, I know.
You know what I'm
But
saying,
still-
I'm just using that as an example.
But
of
still,
why.
We have unified business developments
I
in
can see.
I-1.
No,
So
you know
you
what
do.
I'm saying.
Yes. No, you're
See
right.
definitely what would benefit him greatly, more than anyone else I can think of. But like Griffin said, we got to come up with something that benefits everyone. And I
Richard,
don't know if we can.
Richard's business, car dealership, those, some of those, it's not a bad thing, but the thing is, where it goes from there is what's going to be disturbing.
And we've got examples in Graham where it got a little out of hand and had to be brought back in. It's probably the reason that we're having this conversation today.
Exclude business development, unified business development.
All right, is everybody finished?
Like I said, I'd like to see it looked at again and see if it can be, I don't know that it can be, but refined even more to help us control this and do it.
Talk to the planning guys. They worked hard on this.
They did.
They
They
did
did.
the best they could possibly do.
Yeah,
with
oh,
it.
I'm not saying they didn't do well enough. I'm just saying it.
And let's don't fail to remember that these are still allowed unless we make a change right here, right now. These are still allowed with the approval of the city manager. They're not prohibited. They're not totally banned. They can still approve it.
He can temporarily decide
Sure.
that they're having a weekend sale. And
Grand
determine
openings, and
Which I would prefer not to have that
I realize that.
wording in the language.
So there.
I realize that.
We know.
And that's those kind of comments are my issue, I guess. What's going to happen is if we do allow him to do that, or he is not wanting to do that, and the issue is because it's going to be abused.
We've had folks request on multiple occasions.
And then,
By the way, I've
Exactly.
delegated that to our zoning enforcement officer. She makes the call.
so those are some issues that I have. When we start to do it temporarily like that, and it's not being controlled and monitored, then it's going to be abused.
I always had an issue with the Thursday at 7 and those being able to do something temporarily that nobody else can do. Always been a problem in my mind.
Thursday at 7
Any-
signs.
The signs they put up temporarily, any temporary sign that a business could not do.
Now, we did allow for temporary signs a few years ago.
I know, but you know what I'm saying? We flood the place with signs. We've got them on every telephone pole. We put the banners up. I know child abuse is an important thing, and I'm that banner up just like everybody else does. But is it?
But and this is circular because we've had this conversation before, but the city breaks its own rules every day. Our police cars speed, our fire trucks do things. I mean,
What does our fire truck do?
well, they speed.
Jump on that one,
They
big
run
boy.
lights.
They put out fire.
But is it for communal good? And I think that's the discretion of this council. I don't think it's an excluder for this when we do it other places. I don't think it stands as an argument.
And our police cars don't speed.
Want to wreck or some call or something.
All right, is everybody finished?
Yes.
If I have, then I will move you to page 63 in your agenda, and I'll ask for a motion.
Mayor, I move that the text amendment be denied. The text amendment is not fully consistent with the Graham 2035 comprehensive plan.
Then I need a second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed likewise, aye. And I oppose it just purely because the city breaks their own ordinance. Motion carries, or is denied 4-1. Richard? Yes, sir. Come see Frankie tomorrow morning. Okay, good deal.
Come
All
see
right.
Jenny.
Jennifer, you too. All line up. All right, next we have number 4, Downtown Small Area Plan Update Tool Design Group. Who is handling this for us, please? Gentlemen, come up and let us have your name and address. We appreciate you being here tonight.
I'm Jared Draper, 1119 East Martin Street, Raleigh, North Carolina.
Nice to have you here, Mr. Draper.
I'm Chris Lamka, 262 East Autumn Ridge Road, Spartanburg, South Carolina. Now, we're extremely excited to be here again with you, Mayor and Council. Jared Draper and I are leading this exercise as part of the group with the city. And we just want to talk about who we are, why we're here. Tool Design Group is the nation's leading multimodal and urban design firm. And we specialize in placemaking through public realm design. And so the public realm is everything that the city controls and owns as property. We're here to work on the downtown. We were originally hired for a downtown master plan. And then that scope expanded to include a corridor study that will take us all the way from Interstate 4085 all the way up to Albright. We have since then had some discussions and expanded that a little bit east and west to look at our entire circulation plan in the downtown area and trying to remove some of the 18-wheeler traffic from downtown in the square to make it a more pedestrian friendly environment. And then we also have been doing some survey work for you guys. We wanted to ensure that what we are putting in front of you, which we are designing this week, is feasible, but then also let you guys hit the ground running and spend your money wisely to get survey so that you can go ahead and start designing as soon as possible. We were here in February, and what we came to do was listen to your community. Many of you, we had the opportunity to meet many of the individuals behind us in the room. We have had the opportunity to meet. We had 10+ stakeholder group interviews where we just listened. That's what we were here to do. We probably met with 150+ people in the course of 3 days. And Graham is a happening place. And we really have enjoyed being here. And we want to push you guys forward and just build upon the economic development that you guys are already doing here. But there are going to be some possible changes. If we don't recommend change, then we probably shouldn't be here. We want to, again, partner with you and build upon what you're already doing. But one thing that we always do is we design streets for people, and people are a sign of vibrancy.
I just want to add a few things. Obviously, we are in the middle of doing some of the design this week. Nothing is set in stone. We invite you to come by our workspace at Trailhead. We are actively working on a lot of things. Some of those people that we talked to last time were a number of middle school students that we will also have there tomorrow morning to talk with us about design options and some of the things that they would like to see. But as Chris mentioned, some of the possible changes that we're looking at are things around stormwater and utilities, looking at public space and green space, parking, furniture, amenities, understanding some of the pedestrian crossings and safety, as well as multimodal access throughout not only just downtown, but kind of that corridor as well. And so just want to reiterate, those are some of the things that could change, but we are looking at a lot of different alternatives at this time. And so come by, we're actively at work. And we look forward to seeing you or anybody else that wants to stop by. We'll be here for the next 2 days.
Gentlemen, would you mind answering some questions if the council has some? Absolutely. Start with you,
No
Jim.
question.
Lee, questions?
I do. So guys, talk to me about the surveyors that's been downtown and all the work that they've done to actually identify infrastructure. What have they done? What have they identified for us?
Sure. So we have a complete survey outside of a boundary survey. So what we wanted to do was get you everything that is from right of way and 10 foot outside of that. So it goes from Albright and about 75 feet north of Albright. And then it goes about 75 feet south of Interstate 8540, the interchange. So we have that whole corridor. And then we have the downtown core 100 block from Hardin, Pine, Marshall, and Maple.
And in those blocks right there, was there water and sewer identified in those areas?
Everything that can be located by 811 by the locate service, and then any visible sewer, manhole cover, or drain that is there has been picked up.
You mentioned stormwater management. It's going to be crucial in the future. Obviously, we've experienced problems in the downtown with stormwater. Can you talk about that a little bit and some of the options we could be looking at? Because currently we really experience a lot of problems with stormwater management, as well as old water and sewer lines.
Sure. So we have been actively working with Burke, and we have our stormwater engineers here this week. So they actually spent most of today with Burke and going around. There are several opportunities. So you can actually daylight some of your drainage structures through bioretention and rain gardens. We can actually put that underground through underground detention and let it disperse over time. And then also just install general infrastructure. So currently there is limited, if any, infrastructure stormwater wise in the downtown square at this time. And so we're exploring all of those options, both from a longevity standpoint, a maintenance standpoint, and a cost standpoint.
Sure. So you've also, which is going to be a very important factor as well, received a lot of information in regards to parking in the downtown. You're looking at some different options available without limiting or eliminating too much of the parking, but to improve the stormwater management, to improve some streetscaping. Could you talk about that a little bit? Some of the different options for parking?
Absolutely. And so I think it's really important to note that we are still looking at a lot of different options.
Yep, it is.
And this is a comprehensive look, not just at parking, but all of these factors. And so the way that we start to lay out design options for parking could impact stormwater. So we need to look at that kind of as one fluid kind of problem to solve. And so when it comes to parking, we're not looking at that just from the downtown square as a standalone. We're really looking at kind of the net parking in the 100 blocks around downtown, understanding what you have today, what today is currently kind of to code as far as safety goes. There are some parking spots out there that if we were just going to restripe, that we see there may be some safety issues with. And so we've taken that into consideration when we start to look at those nets. And so as we develop these options this week, one of the things that we're going to be looking at is what does this do to your net parking within the downtown core, kind of that 100 blocks on Elm as well as Main. So each scenario would have that option. And I think that we're going to see there's going to be some variability within those options. Some maybe eliminate almost nothing, some a little bit more, but we want to look at that comprehensively.
Right. And so you mentioned the open house. Just to remind everybody again, the open house is available for anyone to drop in, express their ideas. And as you mentioned, which is very important, is this is still an ideal phase. We're still getting a lot of information and trying to get everyone's input in the city and people that are interested in coming out and wanting to be engaged in the process. And
absolutely, yeah. So we're at the Trailhead location. It's kind of our design studio for this week, and so feel free to stop by anytime. We will be drawing. We do go out for lunch, so if you come by and the door's locked, that's probably where we are. But yeah, giving your input on what we're drawing, on some of the options. There are a lot of voices. We've heard from a lot of people. Chris has mentioned. And so we understand that there may not be one answer that solves absolutely everybody's concerns, but we want to hear from everybody nonetheless.
What hours are going to be the comfortable hours for people to be able to come by?
As far as tomorrow goes, we do have middle school students at 9 a.m. and 10 a.m. You are welcome to join that if you want to have some fun. But after that, we should be there most of the rest of the day, probably until 5 or 6 tomorrow afternoon. So anytime that time, and then Thursday morning, we should be there all morning till lunch, and then we'll be working as a presentation with the city a little bit later on some more of the things that we heard.
Great.
So
thank you, guys.
yeah, absolutely.
Melody, questions?
No, sir, not at this time. Thank you.
123 North Main is the Trailhead address.
Yeah, I got one question. So, and I'll start it with a comment. There was a community not too far away that engaged a firm to do something similar. They came back with a plan. They built a downtown that was about 2 blocks. They came in basically and said, your downtown shouldn't be here. It should be here. It printed on the front page of the paper, and there were about 50 residences in that area. So from a feasibility standpoint, that's the largest of my concerns, is that we can achieve the dream, and that dream is achievable. So from a feasibility standpoint, what kind of work or thought, or how do you gauge that, or what do you weigh?
So one of the things that we pride ourselves on at Tool Design is working within the current right-of-way and what you currently own. So we made sure that from that standpoint that you have minimal right-of-way acquisition, if any at all. And we firmly believe that by you focusing on what you can control, the streets, and giving back to the community and creating streets for people, that is how you continue the vibrancy and the economic development. So not transplanting your downtown because you have a gorgeous downtown. You have great bones, you have wonderful people, and it's just reallocating some of that space to accommodate more.
The only thing I would add to that is that we have a great opportunity here with what you have going on in the downtown. You've already been doing a lot of work here. The people here have been doing a lot of work in this community. So I think the fact that there's a passionate group of people in your community, and we just want to come alongside. We're not here to change absolutely everything. We want to continue to leverage that work. And so that's kind of a kudos to your community and to the work that you've already done.
Thank you, gentlemen. We appreciate it. You got a question, Tom?
Yes, sir.
I will add one more thing, Griffin. Part of what our end recommendation will be is phasing and how to achieve that. And we will be providing some phase 1 cost estimates to those line items so that you can start budgeting those for current planning years.
Great.
Have you got a question for us or for the?
For them, I think.
Okay.
I think it would be Mr. Draper based on his comment. I'm concerned with the reports I'm hearing in terms of the parking recommendations. And in particular, you described it as you'd be eliminating some to almost none. Did you get anybody who came to anything who said we need less parking in downtown Graham? I'd be surprised.
So we'll start with the idea that recommendation is probably not, because this is still fluid, working out things right now. We have a lot of options on the table. And so
Are any of the options to leave all the parking that there is?
currently that answer, from a net number, possibly yes. We haven't done all of the math on every single corridor. You have a lot of parking today, and so we're going to be looking at the scenarios of what could be. And so I would invite you to come by tomorrow to look at those scenarios. It's hard without those images in front to say exactly.
I think I understand the concept, and this is what I want to understand. Are some of your concepts truly eliminating all parking around Court Square?
Some of our concepts are eliminating some of the parking around Court Square.
Mr. Mayor, I just would say,
Tom, don't worry.
I would just interject though, Mr. Mayor, that my concern is that the city spends a great deal of money on something like this. And one of the key issues that should be of most importance is parking. And anybody I know in downtown Graham would say we need to keep at least what we've got and preferably more. And yet my understanding is that most of their project, most of their plans, most of their options involve a lot of reduction in parking.
Then what I would do if I were you, I would go tomorrow and look and
No,
see.
sir.
Why?
Because it's on y'all.
Of course, we're gonna do the right thing, and don't point your finger at me, Mr. Bone. Please don't do that. It's on us to do this. We're doing the right thing for the city of Graham. We're asking for input from the citizens. We're putting it in their hands to draw up drawings and innovative things to do our stormwater, innovative planners and this kind of stuff. We will do the right thing.
Don't have any problem with stormwater. My concern is on the
You
parking.
need to have concern with stormwater. We have a big problem.
No. I don't mind the recommendations that might have to do with stormwater. And y'all talked before about the infrastructure in downtown. I understand all that. What I don't understand is the focus on reducing parking.
There is no focus on reducing parking.
Mr. Mayor, may I?
Yes.
I actually would agree with one of the things that was mentioned about that we did not hear from people that they were looking to greatly reduce parking in downtown. However, how people define downtown is something that was a conversation all of the time. And so downtown being more than just the square itself, downtown even being more than the 100 blocks, including the public parking that's all around. And so how could those spaces be reconfigured, those lots be reconfigured to actually get a net gain in parking in your overall downtown area, which is in our study area? So again, I agree with you completely. We have not heard about people wanting to greatly reduce parking at all, but we have talked about is what is downtown, what does that boundary look like, and how do we define where parking could be in downtown?
And you've met me, and I would entertain any option, reducing parking, increasing parking. I want to see all the options. So you said you had not met anybody. You said you had not met anybody downtown that would entertain reducing parking. Now you have.
Really?
Yeah.
Let me, I want to say something too, Mr. Mayor, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
We're in a planning stage, okay? They haven't presented anything. They are talking, the public's talking. You're way, way, way ahead of the game and making insinuations to us about what we will or will not do. Right now, we are in the opportunity for the public to speak. They've simply come tonight to say, gosh, they're working on it. They're offering 2 more sessions tomorrow for the public to speak, period, okay? For us to sit here and talk about specifics tonight is ridiculous, all right? We haven't seen anything. They haven't presented anything. You're way ahead of the game in this ridiculous conversation to be having right this minute. We are in the planning stages. We'd like to see what they come up with, and then we'll make decisions as a council. But please don't stand up here and argue with us about a plan that is being worked on.
Councilmember Wiggins, I'm not meaning to argue. My concern is that, in fact, the various drawings that they have all presume a reduction in parking, rather significant in some cases.
And they haven't done anything, Tom.
But my
okay? You're way ahead of the game. All right. If you have a concern, then bring it up when something starts to come. But right now, we're wasting time.
My concern is just that, though, council member, is that it is starting to come, and yet it's coming despite. Again, maybe there's a minority of some people who want to see a reduction in parking. I certainly am not familiar with that.
There are other avenues.
Okay.
And to be clear, I didn't say I wanted to see a reduction in parking.
Maybe I misunderstood. What did you say?
Statement said you have not met anybody that would entertain less parking. Entertain.
Oh.
I want to see all the options, Tom.
But we do have some problems, and the problems, there's a big stormwater problem, and that problem caused that little dip in the road that the state came in and engineered and caused us even bigger problem with a failing Fort Square.
The state caused that problem of putting
Exactly. I
trenches
know
in the
that.
road.
But
I know they did.
I did want to say something. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go
Oh, go
But
ahead. I'm sorry.
if we have to give up 4 parking places in the corners to remedy the stormwater, I'm afraid we might have to do that. Might, but we don't want to, but we might have to. Because if we run it to the outside into a cauldron or sort of like Bojangles is, where it's underneath the ground and the water goes under and stays and then leaches out. If we have to do something like that, or if we tie it into the stormwater system, somewhere along the line, a parking place might be gone. But the odds are they won't. Come up with an idea of rounding the Fort Square instead of making it square. If you look straight down on it, the outside is square. If we round it, we can have the street sweeper get in there. The problem we're having, which would increase parking.
Would it increase parking?
Yes. Because then you wouldn't have the square corners. You would have a round where you could put another car. So there's all kinds of options, Tom. So give us time. We'll do the right thing. I think if you'll watch us, we'll do the right thing.
And I would also like to just emphasize, Mr. Mayor, sorry to interrupt.
No, you're fine.
Ms. Kimmery. My concern is not with the council. And I didn't mean to point a finger in terms of you personally or you or anybody. My concern, though, is that the city's spending a lot of money on this project, on this.
We have to
plan.
spend the money on the project.
And yet it appears to me, from all I'm hearing in the grapevine, that it's heading in a certain direction that is not practical. I think one of you asked a question about feasible in a different context. I think the question is whether it's feasible or reasonable in a parking context as well.
Yeah.
The only way, when the DOT comes in and do repaving, the only way we can have a say-so about it is if we do these plans and do our homework. Any changes we want to make other than that hump that they've got, if we want to change that hump, we've got to do this kind of planning. That's what we're doing. That's why we're doing it right now, and we will do the right thing.
And one more, I guess, question related to the traffic. One of the gentlemen, I believe, mentioned that part of the objective was also to eliminate 18-wheelers coming through.
If you want to listen to the public on that, one of the biggest concerns was the logging trucks coming through downtown Graham. Not just the logging trucks, but the other semis that come through downtown Graham. An alternate route for them would be a great savings to not only the street, but to the traffic downtown.
But at the same time, we have two highways, if not 3,
we do,
that come through, and you'd also have to have the state's
we would
both permission and or
and the alternate routes would have to be built in a way to hold up to the transfer trucks. We know that, but if we could get an alternate route and get those logging trucks off downtown, wouldn't it be a more pleasant downtown? Thanks, sir.
So Tom, I wanted to mention just briefly, you mentioned that parking was the most important part of the downtown for you personally. Well, you mentioned parking being most vital to you during this process. That's safe to say?
No, sir, not.
What was your quote about parking being very important?
I believe that the importance of parking is high, yes.
Okay.
And like I say, my understanding is the direction things are heading is to reduce it in the core area, and that's my concern.
So I asked you a very similar question the other day personally that I've asked a lot of business owners, because ever since I've been involved in the downtown from a construction and development standpoint, I've ran up on this same hurdle over and over again. And that is, how much longer can we continue to grow our downtown with our current sewer in place? You even told me that you had sewer problems in the very recent past. That is the number one issue. As we look at the future and we're getting more interest in our downtown, there is a reality that we have to get ahead of this, that we may not be able to grow. We may not need more parking spaces because we are maxed out. Burke, you can't have a conversation with our public works director without him saying, how much more can this system that we have in place sustain? We don't know. It's 100 years old. We've got 100-year-old water lines. We got 100-year-old sewer lines. Is it feasible that we could put a multi-story building in the downtown? It is very questionable. And if we don't get ahead of this, we're done. We can't grow and we can't attract business and commerce into the downtown. For me, the nuts and bolts of this plan is the most important part of it. And that's getting ahead of this repaving. That's getting in there and getting these new water and sewer lines in so that maybe we can see growth for the next 100 years and we can be proactive before we incur more problems. The sewer at the building that I built is actually had to be put in as new and run an alternate route because it no longer could service the sidewalk. You know that. And that's the important part of this equation for me. Now, whether we put some new streetscaping in is wonderful, but this is a big plan. But if we don't handle that, we're doomed. I know we are because we have failures now, and it's going to get worse as we grow. And that's what's important. So that is the most important part for me. Parking, if people don't come to your downtown, parking's not a problem. If you're going to stay the same, so hopefully that's going to be something that we're going to address and we're going to get out front. And that was the important part of this whole conversation for me when DOT said, we will stop the paving of Main Street if you guys want to take care of some of these issues, but you've got to have a plan, just like the mayor said. So.
Thanks, Tom. Anybody else want to speak on it? Jennifer, please.
I stopped by there today and looked at some of the plans, and I get what you're saying, I get what Tom's saying, but what concerned me is that I heard kind of through the grapevine that at the most we would be giving up like 4 parking spots. And then when I went there today, there was no option that had the most parking that it had in Court Square was 3 per corner. And I'm like freaking out a little bit because I own a lot of that property, and I know I would lose tenants if that parking got changed. I relayed that to them, and I'm hoping that they're going to come back with some other options. But I do think it might be important for the council, maybe big picture wise, to give some direction to them, because if we were going to lose 4 parking spots on a Court Square, that's doable. That's something that I think you could get buy-in, but losing all of the parking and having 3 per corner, and that's the most, that's a problem. I don't think you'd have any business owners with buy-in on that. I also am very concerned about the easements and the road, getting rid of the loading zones and them being in the back area and taking my property, I guess by eminent domain. I mean, as a business owner that you've invested your blood, sweat, and tears in this property, and then you have someone else going and surveying it, you just don't want to find out at the 9th hour that it's something else. It makes you very nervous. I want Graham to grow. No, I know. I'm saying, but you want to be part of, you want to make sure that they're heading in the right direction and not come up with only 3 options, and all 3 of those mean you have no parking downtown.
And that also
that's
gives
what
you
I
the
don't-
option to go to these meetings and voice your opinion, and they'll take those opinions. And
Right now, they are only in the public input phase, period. When we need to step in, we will. But right now, it's public input. That's all it is.
But there's no...
It doesn't matter, Jennifer. It's public input. Public can say or do anything they want to right now, and it's their right to go in and say those things. When we get to it, then it's our opportunity to work with our staff and all of us to see what we have and move in a correct position. But they have an obligation as a study to do 1 phase that is open to the public, period. That's not for us to interfere with right now. That's their phase. Okay, that's how it's done. So we will get to ours, and we're hearing, we know.
Yeah, I just don't want to have an option where it's only 3 options, and none of those are good options
I
for
will
us.
really not stay awake on that one tonight.
Well, I hope that's the case. I hope we come up with more options. I encourage that. Hopefully they'll
Thank
listen
you, Jeff.
to that. But
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. We appreciate you being here. Yes, ma'am. Let me have your name and address, please.
Sherry Payton. I live on Ivy Road in Graham.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm a part of that public. I'm not a business owner. I'm retired, and I chose to live in Graham. And I feel like he was talking about the people who are paid to do all this. Well, I've been involved, thank goodness, with Nathan and Mary and Alexa in the public part, and it's free. And all of the people that I've been walking around the city of Graham with give their advice freely. And I'm very thankful that we have this in our city and that we have you in our city to listen. And they've taken our advice, and some of the things that we've suggested are already being fixed. And I appreciate that. I'm a pedestrian. I walk. I'm an active 75-year-old, and I would love to bike, but that may be an option in the future. But this is my city too. It's not just the people who own the things here. I use the things that are owned. And so I think that you need to not only make it friendly for the people who own things, but if you don't make it friendly for me, I'm not coming down here. So I love the city now. I want to keep its charm, and I want to keep it friendly to everyone.
I'm sure these gentlemen listen. I've had the honor of walking around with her with 2 street audits, and we've had a good time suggesting things. And thank you, ma'am. Anyone else? All right. Thank you for the approach, and I appreciate it. And everybody go to Trailhead tomorrow, and we'll see what we can find out. Okay, next we've got number 5, Historic Resources Commission Annual Update. And Alexa, you're handling this for us with the help of Kerry Worthy. Mr. Kerry, nice to have you here, sir.
Thank you. Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Council, for the opportunity to give you a brief update on what the Historic Resources Commission has been up to in the past year. This year, we created a statement of purpose for the Historic Resources Commission to safeguard important elements of Graham's culture, history, and architectural history, to preserve those districts and landmarks for the education, pleasure, and enrichment of the residents and visitors alike. Among the topics that we'll cover tonight are the number of certificates of appropriateness, the facade grant program from this year. We'll talk about the certified local government certification that we sought and from the North Carolina State Historic Preservation Office. Go over our work plan for this upcoming year and years into the future, and then our goals for 2020. By the numbers, there have been over 112 volunteer hours that have been donated through our commission members based on attendance records and the amount of time that we've spent in meetings as well as outside of meetings doing some research and other training opportunities that the commission's had. Over 33 COAs, certificates of appropriateness, have been reviewed, which is over a 28% increase over the previous year. So we've seen a lot of growth in downtown, which is correlated with the number of projects that have sought approvals through the Historic Resources Commission. And then that volunteer time translates to actual dollars and cents in terms of value to the city of over $2,700. And we've also approved 6 facade grants. Projects were funded this year. As I mentioned, we have 36 major and minor certificates of appropriateness. Minor are available for staff to review administratively, and major being ones that go to the HRC to review. These are just a list of all of those projects that have been on our docket. And I think there's one more page. And then there's a couple of upcoming. These are pictures of our projects that were funded this year. I took pictures today of the projects that are underway. Naz Brewery with the painting of the sign there and new doors. And then the facade on the front of the, I want to call it the Patterson building, and new awnings for the roasted coffee depot and paint, which I think I updated that photo, but that's not from today. And then there were 2 that were information directories that will be on the soda shop and Sandy's to inform people with flyers from events that are going on in either downtown or in Graham. Total since 2015, the city has granted over $61,000, and the private match to that has been over $159,000. So the return on investment has been significant and is making real change happen in downtown. And that's just an overview of projects since the inception of this facade grant. Over the past year, the Historic Commission has been engaged in more training opportunities to learn more about historic preservation, including an all-day session that we reached out to the State Historic Preservation Office. They brought in several guest speakers to inform us about all the different aspects of historic preservation to consider. And then we also have been doing smaller training opportunities with the commission. And I'll let Carrie speak about our application to the state for certification.
Right, so at the beginning of the year, we applied for the certified local government status, and we were denied that certification. The reason we asked to be certified was so that we could have access to grant funds. There's 4 reasons why we were not certified. The most important was that we don't have an inventory, current inventory for the downtown. The last inventory was done in 1980. The reason that we were applying was also to try to get some grant money to do this inventory. They require 1 inventory every 10 to 15 years. So we're way behind on our survey. A survey could cost up to $30,000. So we were trying to save the city some money by being able to apply for some grants that would pay for a portion of that. But of course, we did not receive that. We are looking into some other ways that we may to do that. But if the city would look into looking into their budget to start thinking about putting some monies in for us, because we do have to do this survey. It's very important for the downtown and for our work and what we do. The other, another one was the Qualified Historic Preservation Review Commission. That I charge you as the commissioners to, when you come up to selecting new commissioners for the historic, that you look at their qualifications. Their qualifications need to be special interest, experience, or knowledge as architects, history, or related disciplines. So please look at that when you start appointing people to the Historic Commission. It's very important that we have knowledgeable people on our commission. The third was inadequate public education and outreach. And then the 4th was designating landmarks and districts. I think in the last at least 15 years, it might be even more, we've only designated 2. And that was the Oneida Mills and what was the second?
The other one was the opera.
Oh, the Opera House. So those are the only 2 that we have designated. There's a lot other buildings in our downtown that should be designated, and so you know, we have not been doing our duty as a historic commission in doing that. So that was another reason we were denied. So in our work plan, we are going to be looking at these designations that we were denied, and as you see, regulation, identification and designation, education and outreach and restoration. So those are the 4 places that we will be working hard on doing towards the 2023.
I think that was.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so our goals, of course, are to become certified for certified local government status, oversee certificates of appropriateness, administrate the $15,000 facade grant, attend more public training so we can be more educated and better serve the public, and then start doing more public outreach and educational programs. And so we will be doing, those are all of our goals for our commission. And we have spent the last year really redefining ourselves and redeveloping ourselves. It's not easy from where we started to where we need to be, but we are working hard at becoming a good historic commission. And we've had really good staff that has helped us to work towards that. And so I hope that you will see a better working historic commission.
Would y'all mind answering questions if anyone has one? Start with Lee, I believe. Lee?
Yeah, so Chair, how quickly can we reapply? That's taken into consideration that we satisfy some of these concerns that prohibited us from being certified.
I don't believe there was a time period in which we'd have to wait. However, we would want to see most of those items checked off their list so that they don't feel like we're just reapplying to reapply.
And some of those, like appointing the people that they prefer to see in some of the positions, might take a little more time, unfortunately.
I think they also indicated that just demonstrating that you had made an effort, a significant effort in trying to identify those people would qualify as, we've done our outreach to the community at large to find those people that meet that.
Sure.
The survey was going to take some time. So, finding the funding so that, because the survey is hiring a person to do that and come in to do that. So that's going to take some time. So finding that money's first so that we can then get the person to come in and then the person doing that. So that's a little bit of time to do that.
I think it's worth mentioning also too that the Historic Resource Commission is a commission that has granted the ability to adopt historic districts and historic buildings only in the last 7 years. How many years has it been, guys? Do you remember? Because we used to, when I first got on council, the county was our body that we would actually use to adopt historic buildings and districts.
I think you're about right. I think it's around 5 sitting here.
Yeah. So, I mean, you guys are just kind of really getting going, and that's why you're kind of in this situation and behind a little bit. I think it's worthy of just mentioning that as well. Okay. So has there been any effort? Obviously, you've got a figure on what this survey is going to cost to get done. Obviously, you've checked with some different firms that can handle this.
So we've reached out to the state preservation office to request that they give us guidance on which firms would be able to do this type of survey, and requested some quotes or places that we could go check quotes with. That's been slower, but I would like to see in the next few months to have a true list of places we could go to and what that cost might look like.
Okay. Now I have a little bit more of a technical question, and it's one that I know that other cities use the same practice, but I've also heard concerns about this practice. And Brian, this is a question that I'm going to address towards you. The Historic Resource Commission, when they grant a COA, it's quasi-judicial process. That appeal process in our ordinance is to go to the Board of Adjustments. Most cities, that appeal process goes directly to Superior Court at that point and doesn't go to another governing body within the city. What's your thoughts on that? I know Chapel Hill allows that as well. The appeal process for a COA will go to their Board of Adjustments. And then from Board of Adjustments, you'd go to Superior. And then from Superior, you'd go to Supreme. But it seems very taxing in that situation to allow someone to have to go through that many steps through an appeal process, especially when you've got two governing bodies within the city, one governing body that will regulate whether that appeal is worthy or not. What's your thoughts?
My thought is that they want to exhaust all the administrative appeals before they go to the court. That's going to the Board of Adjustment, then the Superior Court, and so forth, Court of Appeals, and what have you. That's just kind of the general lay of the land. You exhaust all administrative appeals before you get to the actual court system.
You can understand, though, and I'm sure you can appreciate that in the court of public opinion, when the public has to go to another body within the same municipality that turned them down, it seems to draw attention to the process. Is that worth saying?
I disagree with you. Yeah.
Okay. But you feel like that it's worthy to have that process in place through the appeals to go to Board of Adjustments for an appeal from the Historic Resource Commission?
I don't know if I have an opinion as to whether it's worthy or not, but I just, in the past and what you study is you exhaust all administrative appeals first.
Okay.
You just go through the whole administrative process and get into the court system.
Okay. Thank you, Brian. Sorry, guys, to divert, but thank you. I'm done. Thank you.
I do. In the process, while we're trying to work on this and get some funding available, first of all, you kind of need to do some inventory stuff, and we're waiting on some costs from the state. We had some potential of some opportunities with another municipality, correct? Is that correct?
So we did reach out to the county to see if there was another opportunity for an interlocal agreement with the city. I've received a copy of that interlocal agreement that they have similar with Mebane. I'll present that to the commission to review. There may be some language that they wouldn't necessarily feel comfortable with
Sure.
relinquishing some of that.
We're just trying to figure out if we have an interim before we can get all the ducks in a row. Good. Secondly, this group, for any of you who haven't been to the HRC meetings, has come a tremendous distance in a year, and they are doing an outstanding job. And I just want to publicly be sure that we commend them on the job that they're doing, their continued training, and all the things that they're offering this community. This is a volunteer board, and they are certainly giving of themselves in a very quality way, and we appreciate you.
Yep, I'd obviously echo that and was going to say as much. Thanks for the leadership, Carrie, but pass that on to the group as well, that we know what you're doing. Quickly, what's the residency requirement for a commission member? Is it city limits? Okay.
No question.
All right. Carrie, we'd like for you to carry back to your board our thanks and our appreciation for their hard work.
Thank you.
And great report tonight. We appreciate it.
Yeah, and I want to echo that too, because coming to several of the meetings, I've been, I've heard comments in the public about people thinking that the board's doing a good job. You guys are fair, you're engaged. That's important, and it's important that people walk away maybe not with the results they're looking for, but they're satisfied with the process, and that's very important. It's something that you can't always expect, but it's nice when it's there.
Thank you. Again. Next, we have issues not on tonight's agenda. Janet Eckelberger wants to speak. Would you come up, Janet? Where's she at? There she is. Nice to have you here. I think you invented a word, deconstruction. Is that really a word?
It really is a word.
Okay. All right.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. My name is Janet Eckelberger, and I live at 2872 Nereus Drive in Mebane. I'm really happy to just follow the Historic Resources Commission topic this evening, because what I want to speak about is really apropos to that. I've only owned a business here in Graham for 2.5 years, and I've already seen 2 historic structures on my regular route come crashing down. The old mill building across from Oneida, and more recently, the single-family home at 210 Washington Street, which was a 1910 home. Now, I realize that the option to remove a building not in a historic district is the right of the landowner. But we will never get a historic district status on an area where we've removed all the historic buildings. The Oneida Mill building was an utter shame. It really was a wonderful building that had an amazing potential for reuse, but instead it was raised without any respect for all of the old growth lumber and vintage office furniture and lighting that was in it. The more recent home at 210 Washington Street was demolished with all of the furniture still in it. Everybody saw that. The very last thing standing was the fireplace and the mantle. Beautiful mantle and fireplace sitting in the middle of the property with a big sign that said no trespassing. You can't have this. You can't use this. You can't reuse this wood. You can't do anything. All of the stuff in it is destined for the landfill instead of reclaiming it and donating it to the many wonderful thrift stores, et cetera, that we have around here. I feel like we are wasting precious and irreplaceable materials and resources, heart pine, old growth lumber, architectural significant artifacts. And all this ends up going to the landfill in Alamance County. Now, when we first moved here 3 years ago, the C&D, construction and demolition area of the Alamance County landfill was a hole in the ground 3 years ago. Then it became a mountain, and then it became closed because it's full. Now, I don't think Graham wants to be responsible for bringing a lot of stuff into that as well. And I wish to suggest that the city of Graham have a more compassionate way to deal with this issue. A demo permit is currently issued. It's a very simple document. I looked at it online. And I'm asking that we consider what is being demoed and how to best reuse and reclaim those materials, whether they're donated, diversion, whatever. Donation saves the property owners some money with charitable donations, and it saves the landfill. There are environmental, economic, and community benefits of deconstructing these buildings. We should do everything to preserve the cultural, historical, and architectural heritage of this town. We can be reusing these materials, such as the renovation of the downtown buildings that we're now all talking about constantly, as well as maybe some things in the reopening of the Graham Historical Museum. My girlfriend was very instrumental in working to create the Cook County Demolition Debris Diversion Ordinance, which was enacted in the city of Chicago in July of 2012. And the purpose and intent of this was to reduce the amount of construction and demolition waste generated at the source, recover materials for the purpose of recycling and reuse that would otherwise be discarded, and return them to the economy. And the findings of this ordinance were that the county was committed to protecting the public health, safety, welfare, and environment. In order to meet these commitments, it is necessary that the county promote the reduction of solid waste and reduce the solid waste going to the landfills. Number two, the debris generated in construction and demolition projects accounts for a significant portion of the materials disposed in landfills, and a large percentage of such debris is comprised of materials particularly suitable for recycling and reuse. And the reuse and recycling certain portions of construction and demolition debris is essential to further the county's efforts to reduce solid waste. And number four, except in unusual circumstances, it is feasible to divert an average of at least 70% of all construction and demolition debris from these projects. Now, a lot of times, these types of demolition ordinances need a full-blown reuse center or architectural salvage place nearby to fully realize the ordinance. And I don't believe this community has a need or is a good candidate for something like this. But we do have a Habitat for Humanity restore and a lot of people working on fixing up their buildings right now. And utilizing these materials again in these buildings saves everything. It saves just a thoughtful history of these objects. We do have a small enough town base to actually consider when a building has a demo permit, and I request that we pause and a more thoughtful approach be taken. Any house or structure built before 1950 typically has higher quality building materials in it, and they are able to be reclaimed and reused. I'm here tonight asking for a second or third set of eyes on demo permits requested to make sure that as a city, we are doing our part to be as conscientious and thoughtful about the waste of valuable materials that can be reconsidered in our community. Thank you.
Well put.
Thank you.
Good deal. We'll look into that, and we are looking into that. So,
Yeah,
thank you, ma'am.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. With that, anybody else got anything they want to bring up? Then I'll go to the staff. May, have you got anything you want to say?
Well, I would like to just update council, Mr. Mayor, that Alexa and I attended the Main Street Conference called in Salisbury mid-February or mid-March, and applications are open for the Downtown Associate Community Program and due by May 10th. So we're moving forward on that. And then I guess maybe to echo the presentation with HRC and Mr. Burke presented, just get a read. Some of the comments that I heard at the Main Street Conference is to look at our historic communities, and we had the Oneida Mill Village, or the Oneida Mill project, and there's opportunity for the Mill Village, and looking at the single-family homes and what is the gauge there for that ownership, and moving forward with my position, and just wanted to get a read from you guys tonight on that.
Well, there's been pretty good excitement about the Oneida Mill, the original mill houses, and we've even done an audit of those original mill houses by the state. And that's an exciting project, I think, going in there with some sort of ownership plan with that. I think it's something we definitely need to look at. The house that Janet was talking about, I played in it all my life when I was young, and that was the Wilson's house, Snoozy and Dink Wilson and their house. Buddy Steele grew up in that house, and it was, but that being said, it was beyond, all the floors were gone out of it. I went inside of it, and it was very bad shape. The family was given opportunity to go in it. They took out everything that they thought they could use. She's right, a lot of it could have been used. So with that being said, anybody want to comment on anything that Mary brought up? I call her May because that's what Burlington Times called her the other day.
I was wondering about that.
Jerry, you were mentioning that we were looking into it already with Ms. Nickelberger brought before us.
We were approached not only with the idea of taking some of the original houses and to do something like, not unlike the Glencoe, that kind of thing, where you would retro these houses a little bit and sell them, and for people to live in them, not as rentals, but for homeowners. We had several people gathered to talk about this. We had a good response from it. We did several walks around the neighborhood, and me growing up in that neighborhood, I could point to the houses and say, this one was original, this one wasn't, and usually I could tell you who lived there when I was a kid. And we even went as far as to get the schools involved, wanting to see what their input would be, where we could turn a house over to the high school and the community college and have them retro a house. Instead of building birdhouses, they would actually do something that is in the right.
Mm-hmm.
And the school system was excited about that project if we could get it off the ground.
And I know, to that point, but we're also talking about going in and taking a second look and taking a moment before we decide to burn something down or take something down. It seems to be just a slightly different take on that. Is that, do we have a plan of action? Are we looking at one group, or can we instruct the staff to actually look into that at this point? Because I don't want it to fall on deaf ears and us receive the information and not be working to do something towards that.
Well, could I have asked the Faust group to done a little bit more with that house? Probably. Would he have allowed people to come in there? They might not have been able to allow them as they were demoing it to do it, but could they have allowed people in there earlier? Maybe. The other mill, we've all but chained ourselves to it to keep it from being torn down, but there was no stopping it. Nathan's got something to add to that, I believe.
I think for right now, what we could do is whenever anybody applies for a demolition permit, you could have Alexa, myself, Mary, or Aaron, whoever's here, to not slow the process down, get it done, but to check that house out just from the street, maybe walk around it just to make sure that the walls aren't falling in. The one on Albright, I wouldn't want my worst enemy to crawl through that house. But if we do that and we see that there's some value, attach a one-page pamphlet that says, hey, these are some individuals who are interested in historical salvage in the area. If you're interested, contact them. And that's something that we can do as staff if you guys want. We could do that, not tomorrow, but within a week or two. And then we could have time to investigate some of these more heavier funded lists to try and get something accomplished.
I think that's a great idea. What do y'all think?
I think it's a worthy idea. It's not going to hurt anything to have that information there, and that would be something pretty simple. This process, and I don't know if you're familiar, are you familiar with other cities who have adopted some types of ordinances? I've actually worked in some of the cities. It's all in the details as to who makes that decision, who goes into the house, who determines what's worthy, and whether, and it's a big process. So I think this is a good start. That would be something quick and easy and at least show some interest. And yeah, I think it's good.
Yeah. We'll do a consensus that we ask the staff to do that?
Yes, please.
Sure.
Okay, let's do that. All right. Thank you, Janet. And Mary. Alexa, have you got any, Janet? Mary, have you got anything else? I'm confused. Alexa. Hey.
No, sir, Mr. Mayor.
No, sir.
No, sir. Melody.
Yes, I have two things, sir. I would like to invite the council. You will get another formal invitation, but I would like to invite you on May 9th at 4 p.m. to the ribbon cutting for the Historical Museum. It will be done by the Chamber of Commerce, and you will get a more formal, but for all of the public as well, we invite you to come by and see. There will be a site reception and a ribbon cutting at that time, so we want to invite you all to that. Secondly, Mr. Mayor, it's come to, I think, after several months of working with a few boards, we've come upon some issues, possibly with some of the boards and commissions that we have in operations, some questions about how things are going. I would like to investigate all of the boards and investigate, you're just hearing the HRC issues as well, and how we appoint members, how we get them in, their term limits, all of that kind of thing needs to be investigated and looked at and reworked. And I would like to spend time with the staff over the next few months of working on that. And I just wanted to let you know I've begun that, and I would like to continue moving in that direction to bring something back to the council.
Let's do that, but let's change that investigate word. Let's take it to a study of our boards.
Right. That sounds great. We'll give you a summary.
Anything?
I do. Sorry to keep everybody. Last month, as you recall, I mentioned Emily Sutton from our Hall River Keeper was here to discuss the MVP Southgate project, the pipeline that brings natural gas from the shale mines of West Virginia. This would be a tangent off the existing line that would come from Chatham, Virginia to and basically end off 54. But I have a report, so to speak. That was kind of what I requested your permission to do last month, and I'd like to read that. It'll take about 3 minutes if you don't mind. As council may recall, at our last meeting, I asked to do some research on the MVP pipeline and report back as to specific effects on Graham and our larger community. In the past weeks, I was able to talk to people at our level, over ACC, at the county level, the state level, representatives of the Sierra Club, our local Hall River Keeper, and more. I was also able to review the documentations and reports available on the MVP Southgate project, as well as the county's resolution that they approved against the project in November. All the conversations have led me to the following points of interest. First, I was relieved to see that in its currently proposed route, the project only affects 2 parcels within our city limits, one of which is owned by ACC and the other an industrial tract owned by an LLC out of Southport, North Carolina. Second, it appears that the actual need for expanding this infrastructure is in question. The MVP Southgate leg of the pipeline will connect the existing Mountain Valley Pipeline from Virginia to an interconnect system off 54 just outside our city limits. It appears there is not an unmet need for natural gas, and ratepayers will not benefit from the added infrastructure, but may actually be paying for the capital improvements of a multi-million-dollar company. This calls into question the need for eminent domain when there is no perceivable public good. As you may have read, there are already active lawsuits in the county addressing this process. Third, the project and the invested parties have already received environmental violations and are in mitigation in Virginia. While environmental issues we can anticipate are concerning, the public safety implications are larger. It's important to remember one of our affected parcels educates 4,100 students annually and would be within the blast radius of the pipeline, not to mention putting our public safety men and women at risk. On the positive side, it should be noted that this leg of the MVP Southgate project could bring over 1,000 jobs to North Carolina and almost $6.3 million in generated state and local taxes during construction. Once operational, ad valorem taxes could generate up to $3.4 million in North Carolina alone. It's also arguable that improved infrastructure could lower rates in the future, however likely that may be. These were my major takeaways. While I personally condemn the project and support the county's resolution to oppose it, I do not think our council needs to take formal action against it. The county has hundreds of residential parcels affected, whereas we only have 2 parcels affected, and it doesn't appear either is owned by a resident. The only action I would recommend would be to encourage Frankie, Aaron, and Nathan to look at submitting concerns and complaints about the project to the Department of Environmental Quality. There's a draft environmental impact statement on the entire project coming out in the next few months, and it would be nice to have our concerns included as we are listed as an affected entity.
Very nice report. Thank you. Does everybody agree with the?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
So Emily mentioned that the city of Graham may have some section or some regulatory process in this that clearly I wasn't aware. Does you know anything about that as far as she mentioned?
It sounded
stormwater erosion control.
There's also possible other regulatory issues that they may have with the city of Graham. I won't say issues negatively, but processes they may have to go through with the city. Staging areas,
floodplain, riparian buffers.
All these are existing ordinances that we have that they will have to comply with.
Will there be,
as applicable, they would have to comply with.
okay. And so will there be that permit application process that'll be required to come to us, or will it go through the state and filter down to our ordinance? Would they view it? Will it come directly to us?
Yes, I had a lawyer contact me today and asked about what our floodplain review process was like, and was impressed with the quality of the city of Graham's process and understanding. The gentleman made the statement that out of all of the affected locations in North Carolina, we were the only one that actually had a permit that was available online that you could fill out and send in.
Good. Okay. Well, thank you.
And my understanding was we could make it somewhat difficult, but there wasn't any roadblocks.
No, as long as they comply. But the fact is, at least there's some way that we can help to regulate it, make sure that things are done properly here in regards to those factors. Lisa,
thank you. Appreciate the report. Okay.
No, sir.
Lee, you got anything?
Not a thing, Mayor.
I do want to introduce y'all to Daniel Sist, a genuine lifesaver. Thank you, Daniel, for being here tonight. We appreciate you every day. With that, I need a motion to adjourn.
Does Frankie have anything?
Oh, I'm sorry. I
No.
skipped over Frank.
Melody stole my thunder. I was
I
gonna
know.
keep an eye on your calendar for events coming up this spring.
So sorry.
See, I just
I'll
skipped
let
right
you say
by it.
something next time.
It's already taken care of anyway.
Yeah, I still need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I need a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank everybody for being here.